Welcome, everyone, to the Two-Sided Truth podcast, where we debate it, defend it, and then you decide. A podcast where the facts are presented and you decide the winner. Our sponsors for this evening's podcast is The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy and Shy High Apparel. I'm so excited that you decided to join us this evening. Tonight, we have two debaters with opposing views, Michael Ferguson and Christopher Harris, debating on the topic, what is racism and is it more prevalent now or pre-civil rights era? So here are the rules of engagement. Our debaters have four subtopics/rounds to debate, with an additional sparring round where our debaters will get a chance to ask each other questions and respond. With the exception of the sparring round, each round is 8 minutes long, which includes debaters laying out their arguments and presenting their facts, and then they will both have a chance to respond before moving on to the next round. You, as the viewer, will vote. You will have a chance to vote on each round. We also encourage you to make comments in the chat, but we ask that you are respectful with your comments. Our debaters have worked hard to present their topics and to debate. This message is to our debaters and our viewers. It's okay to be emotional and passionate, but we do want to be respectful. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. However, you can only cast your vote on the twosidedtruth.com. So at the end of this debate, we will have a winner because you would have voted. So let's begin. All right, so we have with us this evening Michael Ferguson, and we also have Christopher Harris. So thank you so much. I'm really excited that you all decided to join me this evening and to debate civilly. So Michael, I'm going to start with you. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what it is that you do.
Yes, good evening. My name is Michael Ferguson. I am a cybersecurity specialist. I work for the government in cybersecurity, and I'm a musician. I enjoy living life to the fullest. I'm here in Chicago, so I enjoy experiencing all that life has, and so that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Christopher Harris, same. Introduce yourself, your position, and all of that great stuff.
Hey, good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. Christopher Harris. Uh, Background: I'm a husband and I'm a dad. That's the most important thing about my background. But I'm born and raised military brat, so I spent a good portion of almost all of my formative years growing up overseas. So that gave me a little bit of a broader perspective on the world and I think a greater appreciation for America. I've done a lot of different work in politics. Worked on Capitol Hill and done some other things working with government and done a lot of TV back in the day. I'm semi-retired from doing TV and media, but decided that I would go ahead and come on with my friend Lisa here today to talk about this. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, for those wonderful introductions. So I want to remind our viewing audience that remember, your job is to vote at the twosidedtruth.com. So you're only allowed to vote once without being subscribed or signed in. Subscriptions are free 99. So subscribe to the twosidedtruth.com to vote. The polls will be open in a few minutes. Before we get started, I just kind of want to give a little bit of a historical relevance, and then we will start. Michael, I'm going to start with you, but before then, I'm going to read a little bit of information. So prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965, racial discrimination was embedded directly in American law. So for those of you all who are just joining, the name of this debate is what is racism and is it more prevalent now or was it more versus pre-civil rights era? So just giving some background here. Under the system commonly known as Jim Crow, many states enforce legal segregation in schools, transportation, housing, restaurants, hospitals, and other public spaces. Anti laws, Anti-racial laws banned interracial marriage in many states until 1967. Voting access was also severely restricted. Black Americans were often blocked from the ballot ballot through poll taxes, literacy tests, grandfather clauses, and intimidation. According to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, only 6.7% of eligible Black residents in Mississippi were registered to vote in 1964. Just skipping around here, violence also played a role in maintaining racial hierarchy. The Equal Justice Initiative has documented over 4,000 racial terror lynchings between 1877 and 1950 used to intimidate Black communities and suppress civil rights efforts. For those who argue that racism was far more prevalent in pre-civil rights era, these examples highlight a period when racial desegregation was legal, systematic, and widely enforced by law and social customs. However, others argue that although legal segregation ended racism, did not disappear. Instead, they suggest it evolved into more subtle or structural forms that still shape modern experiences. With that being said, tonight's debate explores how we define racism, how we measure its presence, and whether the United States today is fundamentally different from the era before civil rights legislation. A central disagreement in this debate is how racism is defined. Historically, racism often referred to explicit beliefs or laws that treated one race as inferior. Today, the definition is often broader and may include implicit bias, systematic outcomes, or structural inequality. So, our first topic for tonight is subtopic number 1. What counts as racism and has the definition changed? And our polls for this topic are open. And Michael, you are first on the floor.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Oh, 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. So, what defines racism? And is it the same? No, it has a different face. I don't think that it's the same. It's legally definitely not the same, but there are still embedded structures that are in place that are deemed as racist, and I believe that stems from what the foundation of this country was built on. And specifically, if you look at the realms, and the data backs this up, which I plan to present, but if you look at the realm of housing disparities, we look at policing disparities with sentencing and things like that. When you look at schooling, and if you look at the distribution of wealth, the numbers, and those are main foundational pillars of a societal or social structures in a society. The data and the numbers prove that there's a large disparity between, non-Hispanic Black and non-Hispanic white people when you just look at the numbers. And so, yes, it doesn't look the same as much, even though there's still lynchings going on. There's still, there's still things going on that was going on before. It's just that now the difference, the law prohibits that, supposedly, not to say that people don't break the law, but it's just taken on a different face. Just like time and societies evolve, I believe that what we see related to racism has evolved over time and been structured and ingrained into institutions designed to keep the minority cultures. And sometimes as far as what I did my research on, mainly Black and white, but this also applies to other minority subgroups located in the United States. So that it's just an embedded systemic form of racism that the data, I believe, would support.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Right before the bomb. All right. Okay. All right. Same question to Christopher. What counts as racism and has the definition changed?
The thing that I have not heard yet in the intro and in the response from Michael is, what is racism? So we're going to try to have a conversation, but we can't even have a conversation, let alone a debate about something, if we're not going to communicate. Communication requires that we both are using the same definitions of words, the same understanding of word. What is racism? Nobody said what it is yet. We're starting in the middle of a conversation without beginning by defining what that word actually means. Now, me personally, I just my thought process, I do have an IT background. I'm a logical, linear thinker. I go and define things. Webster's American Dictionary. That's where I would first go. What is racism? It's a noun. right? Person, place, or thing. 1A definition says it's a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Okay, that's, I don't know, how does that relate to our conversation? 1B says what? Behavior. Oh, okay. Because I think what Michael's talking about, and many other people who believe what Michael are sitting there, they want to talk about behavior or attitudes that reflect and foster this belief, which is discrimination, prejudice, or violence against other people because of their race. That seems to be like what he's pointing at, right? But the second definition, definition 2A, is the systemic oppression of a racial group to the social, economic, and political advantage of another. We've already identified the fact that the Civil Rights Acts got rid of those laws, right? So definition 2B, a political or social system founded on racism and designed to execute its principles. Okay, if you want to believe that, then I'm going to need you to show me concrete results that only happen against one group of people. I believe race is a fallacy.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. All right, Michael, would you like to counter?
Yes, I would like to rebut that. And yes, my brother is correct. I didn't give the official definition of racism, but I would pull. I believe that some of the topics that I want to lay down is defined in those three Webster definitions of racism. But also, the CDC has a definition of structural racism as a way major areas of society like housing, education, employment, and healthcare and law enforcement are structured to benefit one group in power and hinder another group based on race, and some even it goes on to say ethnicity. So the definition of what I would lay out as structural or institutional racism is putting policies, putting procedures, putting practices in place that one race of people is left behind, or they don't get as much funds, and or they don't get as much resources or investments compared to others. And then scientifically, because I'm currently in grad school at Northwestern, and one thing we do is study a lot of mathematics. I'm in engineering school. One thing that we do is we like science to be proven by mathematics or by data. So when you look at the data, I think it will back up that there is something there going on that shows that there is a disparity, and one group of people that are in power are trying to keep the other group left behind.
Okay.
So,
Are
if
you
I can
done
ask,
before you go, Chris?
Yes, go
Okay.
ahead.
I do want to say this before Chris comes in. The polls are open for this topic. You can vote at the two-sidedtruth.com, the two-sidedtruth.com. Thank you. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
okay, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. You're in the Chicagoland area, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, who controls all the politics in Chicago?
As far as the political party,
Yes.
yes, the Democrats. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So, are you holding them accountable for systemic racism?
Absolutely. I never mentioned
Are
politics.
you really though?
Absolutely. I hold them accountable. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. I think both sides are culpable.
No, that will look. If we're going to be honest here, Michael, you never hear Black folks stand up who are or African Americans who are predominantly Democrat voters. You never hear them stand up and go get in the face of Democrats and say, "You guys are creating, perpetuating systemic racism." That being said, the numbers, right? When it comes to a capital crime like murder, is there disparate treatment with murder? I mean, because if let's not talk about petty stuff like jaywalking. Let's talk about capital crime. Is there a disparate treatment, systemic oppression, whatever you want to call it, in how murder is prosecuted?
Yes, absolutely. There's how murders. Well, I would say you talk about murder as far as somebody being arrested for murder, or you mentioned capital punishment, which is something separate
No,
after
yeah,
that has to
arrested
do
and
with
in
sentencing.
prison. Arrested and in prison, right,
Yes,
for murder.
yes, and the numbers would lay that out for murder. And when you look at it, yes, everybody, if the police can prove it, they're going to arrest somebody for homicide. But then what does the sentencing look like compared to white and black? And that can be proven by the data as far as what the punishment is.
You mean like the
Because
same
arrest,
data?
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know. The clock's running, so I didn't want to. I don't want to
Uh-huh.
break the rules, or Lisa. So
Thank you so much for that. All right. The polls are open. The polls are open. Please cast your vote at the two-sidedtruth.com. At the two-sidedtruth.com. This subtopic will be closing in a few minutes. I have a question from Michael.
Mhm.
Michael, 30 seconds.
Yes.
Um, if every disparity is treated as racism, how do you distinguish racism from class, culture, geography, family structure, or bad policy?
Well, I wouldn't say that I would say key social constructs do show racial disparity. So since we're talking about crime, let's talk about currently, today, and this was in the year 2023, 300, so black prisoners represent 360 sentenced prisoners out of every 100,000 prisoners. And whites only represent 231, yet there are more whites in the United States than are blacks. So that's one thing that I would go with.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to
Mhm.
ask Chris the same question. If every disparity is treated as racism, how do you distinguish between racism from class, culture, geography, family, structure, or bad policy? 30 seconds.
the short answer is you can't. I mean, racism is like ketchup. You put it on everything, right? It drowns out the taste. It drowns out the nuance and everything. We can once again, you can go into a Hunter Biden who clearly violated the law multiple times, no punishment. A Hillary Clinton clearly violated the law, no punishment. Why? Not because they're white, but because of their socioeconomic class. That's why they were able to avoid punishment.
Okay, thank you so much for that. All right, Chris, question for you before I go. The polls are open for this topic and it will be closing soon. You can only cast your vote on the two-sidedtruth.com. We are streaming live on all platforms, but you can only cast your vote on the two-sidedtruth.com. And guess what? It is free 99 to subscribe. All right. Has the word racism become so broad that it now punishes disagreement and shuts down honest debate? 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, that was for me, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, racism is a charge. It's like ketchup. People put it on everything. If someone doesn't smile at them, they call it racist, right? I mean, it's insane. My wife and I left the church that we were attending because they decided to go down that woke route and they started talking up about everything being racist. Literally, a woman complained that somebody smiled at the previous customer but did not smile at her. She felt like that was racist. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Michael, same question. If every disparity is treated as racism, how do you distinguish between uh, racism from class, culture, geography, family structure, or bad policy?
Well,
30 seconds.
I think the devil is in the details, just like everything else. I think that some of these Chris will make these petty things, arguments, and that's a very extreme swing of the pendulum to say that's racism. But when we look at things that affect people's wealth disparity, how they treat it police wise, even healthcare, the mortality rate, I think those are more concrete systems where we can say yes, this does look like racism, and these are things that people care the most about.
Thank you for that. All right, the polls are closing in a matter of seconds. We're up to round two. So, the civil rights movement led to some of the most significant legal changes in American history. Before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, many states enforced laws that segregated public spaces, restricted voting access, and denied equal treatment based on race. To some observers, the dismantling of Jim Crow and the expansion of civil rights protections represent a clear sign that racism today cannot be as prevalent as it once was. Others argue that while legal segregation racism may have shifted into less visible forms, continuing through social attitudes, institutions, or patterns of inequality. Subtopic 2. Does the end of Jim Crow prove racism is less prevalent today? And before we move forward, Chris, this is going to be your question.
Mhm.
Before we move forward, please make sure you come to the two-sidedtruth.com and cast your vote for this particular round, the two-sidedtruth.com. All right, you're up.
Um, the question I'd have to ask everyone: why do you care what other people think about you? If that person doesn't have any power over you, like I've seen people and they complain like, "Oh, this person was racist." For example, a cashier. Okay, did the cashier take your money? Did you get your groceries? Who cares whether they like you or not? Why are you trying to police attitudes? See, the difference between now versus then is previously, like, I can't even imagine going to my great grandfather, who I met my great grandfather before I met him when I was 15 years old. He was born in Greenville, Mississippi in 1909. Grandfather, that life is harder for me today as a black man in America than it was for him growing up in Greenville, Mississippi before he migrated up to Detroit. Like, it's insane for me to sit there and try to say life is harder for me when he faced real discrimination. There were things he could not do. I fly first class. I eat in whatever restaurant I want to eat into. I go into whatever building I want to go into. None of that matters. I don't care whether you like me or not. Now, if I go into a restaurant and you do something to my food, that's a problem. And guess what? That's against the law. You'll be punished for that. But I don't have to sit there and wonder like, well, did that person smile at me or not smile at me because of how they feel about me? Who cares? Do they have the power to infringe upon my unalienable rights? Most likely they don't. And that's what's crazy. We only care about racism. I mean, I'm sorry, people talk about racism from trailer park white people. They'll complain that some trailer park white person is being racist towards them. And I'm like, you drive a BMW. That person's riding the bus, but they called you out your name and that ruined your whole day. That's sad to me.
Okay. Thank you so much. Michael, same question for you. And before you go, the polls are open for this subtopic. The polls are open for this subtopic. Michael, does the end of Jim Crow prove racism is less prevalent today?
Absolutely not. And I'm gonna piggyback on the argument that Chris made. The main thing about I don't think a lot of people care about those type of things when I think what more people care about and what's directly related to crime and why we see such a high amount of it happening in minority communities because it's again access to resources. That's the overall thing. And right currently the wealth gap in the United States is huge. The median income for white people in a white home is $285,000. Median income for black non-Hispanic is 44,000. From 285 to 44,000. That's a huge difference, which means a lack of resource. I think that's what people care more about than it does when people are not rude to them walking down the street or people aren't. We see there's systems in place the data is the data, and this is coming from the statistics from the United States government. And so I think when we mentioned about socioeconomic status, and things like that, there's a direct link from resources and jobs and people having equal access and equal opportunity to resources, especially wealth. Now, nothing else people care about is money. People care about being able to give their children a good lifestyle. And I say that even though racist laws, Jim Crow, and all that ended, those systems are still around. And that's why you see these huge disparity in these numbers is access to wealth, education, disinvestment. And I see it in Chicago. It happens in Chicago. And it's not a Democrat Republican because both of them is equally culpable in my eyes. But I do think that those systems and what's ingrained in people's mind and hearts and what's been passed down generation from generation is showing in what we see in our Black community, disenfranchised communities that are starved of resources than we see in other communities. And there are poor white communities out there too in the backwoods. There wouldn't be any Obamacare if it wasn't for poor white people, in my opinion. So,
thank you so much.
Do I have time to respond to that?
Yeah, before you respond, the polls are open. The polls are open at the two-sidedtruth.com. Please cast your vote. You can only vote one time. if you have not subscribed. But guess what? To subscribe, it is free 99. So don't forget to do that. All right. Yes, Chris, you can go ahead and counter.
Michael, I got to keep you honest here. When you started throwing out those numbers, you're pulling numbers out of nowhere. The U.S. Census right now, I just pulled it up. Median household income in the United States, which varying by race. Asian households, number one by far, $112 to $125,000 median household income. Now, if you meant to say net worth, that might be different, but you said income, right? But let's stick with income. Asians are by far the highest median household income, and specifically East Asian Indians, right? And here's some real, because I know these numbers off the top of my head because I've talked about it. First of all, 80% of Indian households are married couple households. Less than 1/3, closer to 1/4 of Black households are married couple households. A lot of the Indians who come here on H-1B visas, the federal government requires that you pay a minimum salary of $62,500 to people who are on an H-1B visa. Well, if you have a husband making $62,500 and a wife making $62,500, what do you have? You got $125,000 household income. Michael, how many Black folks are married? How many Black households are married? That's not systemic racism. That's a cultural problem. Nobody wants to address culture because then they got to look in the mirror. If one culture has an 80% married rate and another culture has a less than 33% married rate, that's going to have a severe impact on earnings. And then we start going into all the other factors that stem from having lower earnings, right? I mean, crime tends to happen in more lower income households. But then again, how come there was less crime during the Great Depression? Oh, I know, maybe it's because we had intact traditional nuclear families. See, so if you're going to start throwing around numbers, bring the correct numbers and use them in a proper context. Otherwise, you're not speaking truth.
Okay. Thank you so much. Michael, before you counter, I just want to let everybody know the polls are open for this topic. The polls are open for this topic. Michael, would you like to counter?
Yes, please. Let me, Kristen, complete. We have to see the total picture. Yes, I did misspoke. I meant to say wealth, not income. That is, I will correct the record with that. But also, you failed to mention what happened in the 1990s during the crack epidemic and during the Clinton's war on drugs. Let's talk about how tons of Black men were in prison during that time. And let's talk about before that. Let's talk about how all the factories were and all the jobs were closed in cities like Detroit, Chicago. All these people, these men had great paying union jobs. They lost their jobs. Then here comes crack. And in a lot of ways, I do believe some of it was, shipped here some way. We didn't go down to the poppy fields and stuff and start bringing this stuff and importing it in here. But now you have men that can't pay their bills, support their family. And then we see in the Black community in the 90s start going to crack, which had a devastating effect on the family nucleus. So if we're going to talk about the cultural thing, you're absolutely right. There is less marriages and less cohesion in the Black community compared to other communities. But we have to show the whole picture. We have to have the whole discussion about why that is. Not just like Black people all of a sudden decided that we want to abandon everything that we were brought up with, and we just turned into bad people with Black hearts overnight. We had other factors that actually contributed to those type of situations. And so that's what led to us trying to rebuild. We didn't have a whole lot to begin with, but now we're trying to rebuild from economic pressures that were not our fault. Black people have always been hardworking. We were slaves in the field. We were working out there for free. It's in our blood to work hard. It's other things that took into effect that factored into us going and not losing our jobs and our community disinvestment from our community. And then it eventually ended up breaking up the families, which are what we see today.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. The polls are open for this topic. The polls are open for this topic at the twosidedtruth.com. Before we move on, I do have a few things that a few comments from the comment section. So a few comments says, Black people can go and do whatever they want. People saying they are oppressed today is a joke. Someone else said this debate will go towards racism. That's because Black people love to be victims and blame everything on race. It's an excuse they love to use when things don't go their way. I've never seen so many Black people get upset on social media when a faceless person who they think is white states something that they think is racist, and then they use it to prove racism. Why are Black people always going back to the past? Why? Because things are good now. All right. I do want to let people know the polls for this topic will be closing in a few minutes. The polls for this topic will be closing in a few minutes. All right. Question for Michael. Michael, are you willing to say modern America is as racist as an era with legal segregation, racial terror lynchings, and near total Black disenfranchisement in parts of the South? 30 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, because that is, to me, there's just a difference. As I said, we times evolve, things look different. The country doesn't look the same way it does before. People don't do things the same. Somebody says the only constant in life is change. So just because we don't have lynchings in Jim Crow era things as much, there's still lynching going on, like I said before, in the South. That doesn't mean that the systems are in place to keep one race of people down, and not just one. Like I said, by a culture or a society or people that are in power.
Okay, thank you. Chris, 30 seconds for you. Does ending racist law prove racist behavior and racist institutions disappeared, or just that they got smarter about how they operate?
Well, once again, I'm still rejecting the race itself as a fallacy. It's a social construct. People are going to feel whatever they're going to feel. You can't change how people feel. You're trying to regulate the heart of a man or a woman, and it's just ridiculous. It's never going to change. You can't make laws that are going to change the hearts of men and women, right? Economics will play a far greater role in people changing their heart. Just association will play a far greater role than any law.
Thank you so much for that. All right, the polls will be closing for round 2 in a matter of minutes. All right, we're moving on to round 3. Technology has changed how people experience and observe social conflict. In previous generations, racist incidents might remain local or go largely undocumented. Today, social media and digital platforms allow events to spread across the country and around the world almost instantly. Some argue this increased visibility can create the impression that racism is more common than it actually is, because people are now exposed to incidents that once would have gotten unseen. That once would have gone unseen. Others argue the opposite. They believe digital platforms can amplify and spread racist rhetoric, sometimes allowing harmful ideas or harassment to reach wider audiences than ever before. So the question is, have modern platforms increased racism or the illusion of increased creating racism? And Michael, the next topic belongs to you. That question is for you. You have 2 minutes. If you're talking, we can't hear you. You must be muted. Still can't hear you.
I can't hear him either.
We can't hear you. We're going to let you get your situation together, and then we'll go to Chris and then come back.
All right, no, he's back. All right, there you go. I got
Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep, we can hear you. All right, let's start the clock over for Michael.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, I was just saying that I think the platform of social media has given a larger public square, so to say. Before you wouldn't hear about a lot of people's ideas and things unless you were actually, you had television first, so if people had resources to broadcast, you would see and hear what they have to say. I think that social media amplifies, especially when you look at the fact that it can be crowdsourced and amplified by other people and keep it spread around and go viral, as they say. So it has increased I wouldn't say it increased the illusion of racism, but it has increased the volume and the reach of people that have racist feelings, and they can spread it. And then the other unfortunate thing about the platform of social media, it's a double-edged sword. It radicalizes people that possibly wouldn't have been prone or have disposition to feel a certain way. Now they're hearing all this garbage that's coming over, talking about one race is superior than the other. And then now it's causing them to, for a better choice of words, radicalize. And now they're believing where they might not have before social media. They might not even heard of these people or tuned into these people. So it has to be a conduit of causing extremist views to proliferate throughout society and cause racism to spread. It can be just like it does with a whole lot of other things, but especially when things that people feel so passionate about, this social media platform that we has allows it to be magnified and spread out. And like I said, it affects people that are not so prone to have certain beliefs and things. And a lot of, especially young people, teenagers are very easily impressionable if they don't have proper supervision. They're in their rooms all day on ingesting a ton of, racist stuff. Look at that 764 group, if you've heard of them. That is basically what the internet has caused to be proliferated.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. All right, Chris, would you like to counter? And before you do, I do want to let people know the polls are open at the twosidedtruth.com. The polls are open. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
A good friend of mine, coined the term racial waterboarding and cultural indoctrination. And here's the thing. If no one told you that you were oppressed, would you feel that you were oppressed? If your mama and daddy didn't tell you that you were Black, if somebody didn't tell you that other people don't like you, would you walk around expecting to not be liked, especially based on the color of your skin? So yes, social media amplifies things. Social media can amplify the smallest thing, right? And make it seem like it's bigger. And especially if they play that one thing over and over again. But the reality is, most people are not, got a little background noise there. The reality is, most people are not thinking about you. You've been culturally indoctrinated to believe that everybody else is thinking about you. I saw a lady say on social media, she said that she said that white privilege is being able to go about your daily life, not worrying about the plight of poor Black people. But like, do you understand the narcissism involved in that? That somebody who's living in a community that might happen to be predominantly white, you want them to think about you all the time. They're going about their day-to-day life. And guess what? If you go about, and if you weren't told in a predominantly Black, by the way, most Black folks live in a predominantly Black community. The facts, they like go to Blackstats, forgot the website, .com, right? Can't remember the exact site, but that stat shows most Black folks live in predominantly Black areas. Their representatives are all Black. Everybody they run into is Black, but yet somehow they're worried about what white people are going to do to them all day.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Chris. Michael, would you like to counter?
Yes, I would.
Okay,
I would
2
like to
minutes.
counter. Yes. So there's a couple of things. I think that's an oversimplification. I don't think Black people go around thinking about what white people think about them every day. I think that, okay, to give you an example, if white people or people don't think about us and don't care about what we do. I was just last week, I had to go to Philadelphia on business for work. And I happened to stay right down the street from Independence Hall, right outside of the main part of downtown Philly. And I took a walk. I walked by Independence Hall, then I made a right turn and I went down, there's like a mall area. And I don't know if you heard in the news, but the president decided to take down everything. They had a slave exhibit, which was very beautiful. And he decided to take that down. Why? I don't know. Maybe because it's too DEI or whatever he decided it was for. And I was walking. I saw one of park ranger. I said, hey, because I heard the ruling, the judge went against it, said that must be put back up. And so it's just, and I saw it and it was very, very beautiful. They're not finished putting everything up. But if you make the assertion, Chris, that they're not thinking about us, then why do they keep doing small little things? Because I think, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, I'm more concerned about my safety, my health, my money and stuff, which I explained. Those are systems that the data shows there's a large disparity between white and black. But if they don't think about us, why are they taking down things that represent our history, things that represent, because they say, oh my goodness, we don't want to show what the what happened, what is the bedrock of this nation. We want to erase that because we're embarrassed and we feel ashamed of the white kids and not, oh my God, it's going to cause trauma, you know. And for that to happen, but they don't think about us. They don't think about us, and we're just thinking that they care about us so much. But we see evidence of things that they do overtly, especially in this administration, that they must think about us, and we must be on their mind, else they wouldn't be doing all the things that they do.
All right. Thank you
Can I
so
can I
much. I know
rebut?
you want to counter, Chris. The polls are still open at the two-sidedtruth.com. The polls are still open for this round at the two-sidedtruth.com. Okay, Chris, you got 2 minutes to counter.
Real quick, if you come to Washington, D.C., and you go into the U.S. Capitol building, they have what they call Statuary Hall. And Nancy Pelosi, when she was Speaker of the House, one of the things she made happen is every state has always been allowed to have two statues in Statuary Hall. So it's basically, to represent, just like you have two senators. One of the things that Democrats did is they went through and removed all of their history. Every white person who was a Confederate and a Republican, they removed them. They kept them all this time. All of a sudden, they're removing their history. Why are they removing the fact that they fail to mention the fact that these statues, or whether it's Robert E. Lee or whatever like that they were Democrats, right? So it just cracks me up when they try to point to Donald Trump, but they'll never point to the fact that it's your very own party, Democrats, who've done the most to oppress you and to keep you oppressed. And just as a quick sidebar, I had to go back and say something because, we were mentioning about like racism, skin color, and so on and so forth. Do you know, just as a sidebar, throwing this out there for everybody, that East Asian Indians make up 1.6% of the population of the United States. Why are there 11 Fortune 500 CEOs who are East Asian Indians? Meanwhile, Black folks make up 13% of the population of this country, but only 1.6%, which is 8 Fortune 500 CEOs, are Black. Oddly enough, those Asian Fortune 500 CEOs are all in the technology sector. Look, math is math. You work in the technologies, you work in engineering, right? 1 and 1 is 2. If you show competence in math and numbers, you'll be promoted. It's obviously true because look at all the East Asian Indians, and most of them are dark-skinned, by the way. So if white folks are so racist against dark-skinned people, why are they allowing dark-skinned Indians become CEOs of these billion-dollar companies?
All right. Thank you so much
Oh,
for that, Chris. All
okay, that's
right. The polls are still open for this topic for just a few minutes longer before we move on to the next topic. You must cast your vote at the two-sidedtruth.com if you'd like to vote. I want to read some of these comments that have come in from some of our viewers. Uh, another viewer says Democrats broke up the family. They destroyed cities and businesses, and then instead of offering to rebuild, they offered welfare, but they had to kick the man out of the home. Another viewer says culture determines those baselines. The heart just doesn't devise its own value assessments without experiences. It's revealing more of the truth. It's allowing people to express their deepest and most base impulses without fear of social consequences due to anonymity, or just own those ideas based fueled by monetary incentive. All right, let me go to the two-sided truth and read some of the comments as well. One of the commenters says redlining also affected which race of people got to live in homes with good value, good equity, and responsible property taxes. And then another person says most Black communities have inadequate infrastructure, are food deserts, and have subpar care. All right, so let me go back up to my notes here so that I can ask some questions of you all. And just to let you know, the polls are open, still open for round 3 will be closing in probably another minute and a half or so. Michael, how do you prove social media has increased actual racism rather than simply documenting what is used to stay local, private, or unrecorded? 30 seconds.
I think that you prove that basically in the rise of, what we've seen in these hate groups. Uh, the rise of hate groups is a significant way to prove that. We see a lot of people that are organizing and forming, these racial hate groups. And a lot of it they can trace back and stem toward these people. It allows more people to be reached, like a dating site, like Tinder. You're not going to meet all these women if you just go to the local bar, but if you're on the internet, you're exposed to more people. So I think it's the exposure.
Thank you so much. Chris, if platforms are just exposing what already existed, why do online spaces repeatedly show organized harassment, racial targeting, and platforms' failure to stop abuse? 30 seconds.
The answer to that question is there's really not much that can be done other than to shut everything down, right? One thing I would say that Elon Musk has done with Twitter, with free speech, you let it all hang out. You let it all hang out, and unfortunately, dirty laundry will show. But what are people consuming? What are people putting out there? Why is it there are more bad behavior coming from certain groups?
About that. Listen, I know y'all got a lot to say about this topic. We have a sparring round coming up soon.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot more to say there. You can say a lot more there. All right. Michael, question for you. Is there a possibility that there are people who are exploiting the whole racism movement? So, for example, are there race baiters that are really, pushing racism for profit per se?
I believe that they are, but they're definitely on both sides of the house. There are people that tend to perpetrate hate, and they continue to push that. But I think that there's still a sub institution of where this is proliferated, even without the race baiters. There are still blockades and blocks and things in effect that have nothing to do with what people are proliferating. It's just the foundation of this country.
Chris, same question.
I had to ask you to repeat the question. I was a little distracted.
Sure, absolutely. Are there race baiters and people who are really perpetuating, racism as it pertains to like being online?
Well, there has to be value to it, right? Otherwise, there's a grievance industry, right? There are people who know that, and we'll just look at every election cycle. There are people who throw the racial bomb, hand grenade out there every election cycle because they want to try to get people out to vote. It's very interesting that racial issues are used more predominantly to get Black folks out to vote. They don't use racial issues to get Indians out to vote. They don't use racial issues to get other Asians out to vote, just Black folks.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Polls will be closing for this topic in like 30 seconds. We're moving forward to the next topic. Ultimately, much of this debate depends on how we measure racism. Some people focus on legal rights and institutional structures, knowing that many forms of discrimination that were legal are now prohibited. Others look at lived experiences, survey data, and reports of discrimination or hate crimes to assess how frequently people encounter racism today. I think, Michael, you went last. Chris, this question is going to be for you. How should we determine if racism is more prevalent now? 2 minutes.
You guys live in Chicagoland area. I want to promote a website to you guys. It sounds like I'm being funny, but I'm not. When I said the name of the website is heyjackass.com, right? And here's what heyjackass.com does is they document all the homicides, all the violence in Chicago. And here's what we know based on these facts. If you're Black, your best hope is to be murdered by a black person. Because if you're murdered by, excuse me, your best hope is to be murdered by a white person, preferably a white cop. Because if you're murdered by another black person, nobody cares. Your life is pretty meaningless. You might be on a t-shirt, people pour a little liquor for you, whatever like that, but nobody's really going to care. But if you get killed by a white person, especially a white cop, now all of a sudden you can become the cause celebrity of the day. You can, now everybody will want to give mama some money on the GoFundMe or whatever like that, because, oh Lord Jesus, you were killed by a white person. But meanwhile, let me see, look at the numbers. So far this year in Chicago, 281 people have been shot, 216 people have died from gunshot wounds. And oh, by the way, 70% of them have been black. Does anybody care? No, they don't. They really don't. And by the way, you talk about systemic racism or whatever like that. How often have cops been involved in those shootings? Very few. Once again, go to the website. See, I deal with facts, data, and statistics. I don't care about people's feelings on this stuff, because I'm a truth seeker. Truth is when you present, it just spun on me, so I'll repeat that, is that truth is when you present all the pertinent facts, data, and statistics in their proper place and context in the timeline. If you do not do that, you're not a truth teller. And consequently, when it comes to issues of race and racism, most people are not truth tellers.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. All right, Michael, same question. How should we determine if racism is more prevalent now? 2 minutes.
Well, I just want to piggyback on what Chris said. That is very much oversimplification, because I live in the community. I know genuinely people care when somebody gets killed that's black on black crime. It's not like we don't care. We absolutely care. Number two, let's continue to look at this picture. Most crime, especially homicides, is committed by people that are part of that life. And so genuinely, people that get killed in homicides, a lot of times it's a drug rip going bad. A lot of times it's, it's gang on gang or territorial. So that's the vast majority of those crimes. Not to say that those lives are any less significant, but we can't say that nobody cares, because people do care. Now, if you want to say, just as you corrected me before, let's say talk about exposure. I think that's what you were talking about. Does it get all the press exposure? Will you see it on national news? No, but that doesn't, I have to push back when I say people don't care. I work with youth. I mentor youth, teenagers in the city of Chicago. I've been doing it for over 20 years. And I'm probably the reason why a lot of them don't end up going down that path, because I work with them and we talk and we mentor them and stuff. But when I tell you that we don't devalue their lives, and I think the community doesn't devalue their lives, but again, in what I would describe as we've been talking about in a racist type system, because we know that fuels fire, the systems in place want to amplify things that get ratings. The news media is based on ratings and numbers. And unfortunately, people will watch more if it's a white cop killing a black kid than they do black on black crime. But it doesn't, I would have to push against that. Nobody cares. I'm just saying it won't get as much exposure, because we do care. We always care about the lives of our people in our community. And that's why I know that we love our community and we fight hard for our community, because we care about our community and the lives of the people. No matter good or bad or ugly, we still care.
Thank you so much for that. Chris, I'm going to give you a chance to counter. The polls are open for this topic at the twosidedtruth.com. If you want to vote, you must vote at the twosidedtruth.com. Chris, would you like to counter?
Yeah, I have to go. So saying that nobody cares, hyperbole. So let me walk that back. No, I'm not saying that nobody cares. That's a euphemism to use. People care. They don't care enough. Let's say it like that. People don't care enough. If they cared enough, then they would overrule the culture. Like, for example, the no snitching culture. Because why is it that in Chicago, once again, you guys are all Chicago, so I'll deal with Chicago. Why is it that they have a less than 20% clearance rate on homicide? I mean, you're going to sit there and tell me that people don't know who's doing the shooting and killing? Why won't they go and tell the cops? That has nothing to do with white people. There's no white person involved in that. There have been more in the last 8 years. There have been more black folks killing other black folks in the last 8 years in Chicago than there were black folks who were lynched throughout all of Jim Crow. But everybody wants to talk about Jim Crow. Oh my Lord, oh Lord Jesus, oh they're gonna put y'all back in chains. They want to talk about all that stuff and have us living in fear. Which, by the way, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. All that stuff to get you to go to the polls. That's who the race baiters are, because they value that. They need your vote. They need you to be scared. They need you to have the white man as the boogeyman. Right? They want to act like, oh yeah, voter ID, but yet everybody I know has an ID. But yeah, this was racism to say voter ID. But how come it's over 71%? What, black folks are what, 30% or so of Chicago? Why is it 75.5% of the people shot in Chicago last year were black? Right? How come mass shootings happen in Chicago way more often than they happen across all of America? People don't care enough.
Thank you so much,
Melissa. Can I just give?
Yeah,
a quick,
you're gonna count. I
that?
just want to say before you go, the polls are open for this topic. Please cast your votes at the twosidedtruth.com, the twosidedtruth.com. All right, Michael, you got 2 minutes.
Okay. Now, Chris, you say you're a mandate. First of all, let's not overconflate black on black crime. People of the same culture kill each other, like white people. In usually higher rates. Now we have to look at per capita. Most of your major metropolitan areas in the United States are mainly have minority center populations. But if we go to Podunk, Kentucky, where a bunch of poor white people live, there's white on white crime. That's not something that is so, when you're around white people, kill other white people, because as you said before, black people live around black people, white people live around white people. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get as much attention because they don't usually bring that out, but you have high rates of white on white crime in white areas. So let's just not act like the fact that black people kill each other. Of course, it's going to be a high rate because you have a center of population with millions of people compared to some of these smaller towns when we have maybe 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. So we have to look at per capita at that point. So then number two, look at the history of law enforcement in Chicago. Let's talk about John Burge. He has been convicted of, they were going into projects and torturing black men into making confession. Let's talk about New York City, the ones that they said they were guilty, and then they found out they weren't guilty. So a lot of times people don't trust the police. Let's not act like the police are like, has been the most upstanding. Yeah, it's not only about them killing other people, but they've done things to force confessions. That's been documented. So let's act like, and it has been a huge disparity between police doing things in the community. Some agencies are doing better than others, but there has been a block between, because a lot of people don't trust the police. They don't believe that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So they're less inclined to go tell them about something that happened if there's no trust.
All right. Thank you so much for that. All right. The polls are still open for this topic. I have a few questions, and then we're going to our debate or die round, and then you guys can spar away, because I know y'all got something to say to each other in regards to this topic. All right. Chris, are you measuring racism by what government allows or by what people actually experience? 30 seconds.
How can we determine what people experience? I mean, is everybody documenting? See, once again, show me the facts that insist. Are you documenting everything that you call? I'm sorry, Michael. I'm hearing a lot of Michael.
Is that you, Michael? Making rough shuffling paper. Crystal, can you restart it?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I know you didn't do it on purpose, Michael. But yeah, it's I lost my train of thought. Unless we're going to document everything that people perceive to be quote unquote racist, how are we going to talk about what people experience? And then here's a question: are you willing to have all your documented so-called your anecdotal experiences investigated and have somebody put that to the test and say, was this really racism, or was this bigotry or discrimination, or just somebody just didn't smile at you? Most people don't want to do that.
Thank you, Chris. All right, Michael, 30
Yes,
seconds for this question. I have a different question for you. What is your limiting
oh,
principle? If legal segregation is gone, what evidence will convince you racism is actually less prevalent than before? 30 seconds.
oh, that's easy. That's in the numbers. Let's see the wealth. Let's see
Mhm.
black households and white households have the same amount of wealth. Let's see them have the same amount of access to educational opportunities. It's not a. I've never at once brought up Democrat Republican because both sides are culpable when it comes to why are schools in our communities lacking so much compared to schools in other communities that get more resources and more funding. So let's talk about that. Once I see those numbers and the data being equal, then I'll believe it's not there.
All right. Okay, so we are moving on. The polls will be closing for this round. We are moving on to our last round, which is our sparring round, which is timed for 5 minutes. Michael and Chris will have a chance to interact respectfully and ask each other questions and counter. This is the last round, so if you haven't voted, you will have a chance to do so in this round. All right, fellas, are you all ready for the next round?
Yep.
Okay, I'm leaving it open. Who wants to go first? You have 5 minutes collectively. And
Go
go.
ahead.
Question for you, Michael. Do you know what the wealthiest predominantly black county in the country is?
Uh, More than likely Prince George County, right outside of Maryland, right outside of
Good.
DC.
Yeah. So in the state of Maryland, which I believe has the fifth ranked public school system in the country, why is it that Baltimore City, which nobody's shocked at Baltimore City having the worst public school system in the state of Maryland, but why is it Prince George's County has the third worst public school system in the entire state? Is it lack of resources? I mean, come on, now, it's the wealthiest predominantly black county.
Mm-hmm.
If schools are funded from tax dollars and you have a bunch of people who work for the federal government, you got they trust me, you go through there, you got mom and dad with his matching his and hers BMWs, Mercedes, and a 4,000 square foot home. The kids all wear Jordans. They got every Xbox, PlayStation, so on and so forth. The schools are glorious edifices to education. There's no rundown looking schools in Prince George's County. So please explain to me, with all the resources, right? And it's been a wealthy predominantly black county for what, 2 generations? Why do the schools suck? You don't have to answer that right now. I'm just kind of speaking rhetorically.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Well, I was,
but yeah, if you pause, go. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd like him to go ahead and answer that question.
No, I would just, because I don't know enough about the politics. I have read that's a very wealthy county. I would push back and say, what are the politicians and the people that are in charge of the money? What do they invest in the money in? Where is the
everybody's black? Everybody black in Prince George's County, man. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but that's the same problem we have in Chicago. Like you said, mainly it's majority. We have a black mayor, we have a black, but they still don't invest in the schooling like they do because of some other political pressures.
But hold on, man. Okay, you've had a black president, right? And you've had a county predominantly overwhelmingly black with well-to-do blacks. And yet crime is still one of the higher ones within the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. The schools suck, right? So Prince George's County flies in the face of all the assertions that it's systemic racism and so on and so forth, because everybody over there is black. Now, what you have had happen a lot is they tend to, the political leadership tends to get arrested a lot for being shady and doing illegal things. A lot of corruption over in Prince George's County. Lots of corruption.
We can't say corruption is a Democrat. We just had a Republican congressman that had to resign.
But what I'm saying is that you want to point the finger at like white folks or whatever like that. But when you have black folks in charge, you got black folks with money, and yet nothing improved. Nothing improved in Prince George's County.
You don't think those black politicians are not getting paid off by other people to do other things, to put things toward other things?
Who?
It could be anybody. It could be white people. It could be Asian. It could be people, special interest groups. It could be anything.
Was it Donald Trump paying them off? Was it Republicans paying off?
Probably. It possibly could be, because the problem is most black people are not used to having things and having, even especially the politicians, and they come into all this money and then they tend to do things that they shouldn't do. because of the structure, because that's the structure.
But look, I got to go back to something else you had mentioned when you talked about median household income. Michael, I'm sorry, I got to call you out on this, sir. You wanted to point out white people, but I keep bringing up Asians because guess what? Asians have the highest median household wealth. You mentioned white folks at 285,000. Yes, and black folks are only at 44,000. But why is it that Asians are at 536,000? That's from the Brookings Institute, right? They're pulling census data. But wait a minute. Right. Why is it Hispanics and Latinos have a, $16,000 higher median household wealth rather than black folks? Could it be structural things? And when I say structural, I'm meaning the structure of the nuclear traditional family. Look at the marriage rates within the Hispanic Latino county. Listen, we know what the blueprint is. Walter Williams said it best. Number one, graduate from high school and preferably go on to some sort of college or trade school. Number two, don't have any kids unless you're married, right? And don't get married until you're at least 21. And then number three is get a job, any job, and keep it. Number four, don't do anything to end up in the grasp of the criminal justice system. People who do that, who follow that, less than 8% end up living in poverty. So it's not structural.
But there are structural things that affect that. There's structural things, everything you said just about, there's things that affect that. No jobs in the Black community, no access to equal amount of educational resources. That affects the ability to be able to do some of those things you mentioned.
We just agreed that Prince George's County is wealthy. Come on now, Michael. Now, how are you going to turn around and say that didn't happen? We just acknowledged the wealthiest predominantly Black county, Prince George's County. They're all
But that doesn't mean that they're investing in it the way they should be, because it could be outside factors.
What's stopping them from investing? Remember, how are public schools funded? Across the country, public schools are funded from tax dollars. Yes. That's it.
But who controls the tax dollars, though? Once they're brought in, who controls it? Corrupt politicians, unfortunately, a lot of times.
Okay, well, in the state of Maryland, it's all Democrats. They had a Republican governor for like 8 years. Other than that, it's been like pretty much all Democrats for the past, 50 plus years.
Oh, and by the way, if you look at the South, a lot of public schools in the South, and these are Republican controlled areas, they're lacking too. They don't pay their teachers hardly any money. The teachers are in poverty. The kids' scores are horrible compared to the national average. So it's a lot of things going on when you talk about education.
It's funded by the counties. Remember, it's funded by the counties, and whatever thing is lacking, the state steps in and the federal government steps in to help fill that in. But public schools are funded predominantly by the counties, by the local areas.
All right, you guys, I'm stepping in. Okay, we did great. You guys did amazing. We went over time a little bit, but you guys did good. I just want to thank everyone. Listen, both of you all did amazing. And of course, there's always a winner. And the winner for this debate is Michael Ferguson. Michael, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Chris.
Chris, you did a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
You did an amazing job.
Absolutely.
Michael, you did a great job. You are gifted a gift certificate to one of our sponsors at the Flip Side with Lisa Tracy or Shy High Apparel. Thank you again to our debaters for debating. If you believe you can hold your own during a debate and you love presenting facts and you can civilly debate with passion, sign up to be a debater. Go to the twosidedtruth.com, scroll down a little and click the become a debater button. If you'd like to suggest a topic, go to the twosidedtruth.com and click the suggest a topic button to type in your topic to suggest. Thank you to our audience for tuning in for this evening's debate. Join us for our next debate next week, where our topic of debate is, has Marxism crept into the Black church? Join us for our two debaters with opposing views, Shayna Smith and Jose Rodriguez. If you want to keep the conversation going like this, check out our newsletter on the Flip Side with Lisa Tracy, where we bring two perspectives to both sides of the story. Check us out at theflipsidewithlisatracy.com. Don't forget to subscribe, like us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook at The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy. Subscribe to the two-sidedtruth.com. It is free 99. Y'all know we love free. Thank you and have a great evening.